The cafe buzzed with the typical morning chaos of Neo-Tokyo Station, a sprawling hub where 100 alien species intersected with humanity's relentless march toward the stars. Kelly stood at the counter, her iridescent scales catching the artificial sunlight that filtered through the dome overhead. She was draconian, one of the ancient reptilian species that had watched empires rise and fall across the galaxy for millennia, before humans had even discovered fire. Her clawed fingers moved gracefully through the air, forming the intricate signs of galactic standard sign language. The barista, a young human with neural implants glowing at his temples, stared blankly at her gestures. His mouth moved, forming words Kelly couldn't hear, had never heard. She'd been born without the auditory processing organs that most draconians possessed, a genetic anomaly that had marked her as broken among her own kind. Kelly tried again, her signs growing more emphatic. Hot chocolate, simple, universal. The barista's confusion deepened, and Kelly felt the familiar weight of frustration settling on her shoulders like lead. Around her, other customers began to murmur, their impatience a pressure she could feel even if she couldn't hear their complaints. Then a hand gently touched her elbow. Kelly turned to find a human male standing beside her. He was tall by human standards, with kind eyes and the sort of worn appearance that spoke of long nights and longer responsibilities. A small human child no more than 5 Earth years clung to his leg, peering up at Kelly with wide, fascinated eyes. The man's hands began to move. "May I help?" He signed in GSSL, his movements fluid and practiced. Kelly's secondary eyelids flickered in surprise. In 3 years of traveling human space, she'd encountered perhaps a dozen humans who knew even basic GSSL. Most species considered it antiquated, unnecessary in an age of universal translators and neural interfaces. "I just want hot chocolate," Kelly signed back, her claws forming the symbols with renewed hope. "But he doesn't understand." The man Zachary, she would later learn, nodded and turned to the barista. He spoke aloud while simultaneously signing, a technique called bridge communication that Kelly had rarely seen executed so smoothly. "She'd like a hot chocolate. Please, large, extra marshmallows if you have them." He glanced at Kelly with a questioning expression, and she nodded eagerly, her tail swishing behind her in unconscious pleasure. The barista's face cleared with understanding, and he quickly began preparing the order. Zachary turned back to Kelly, his hands moving again. "I'm Zachary. This is my daughter, Emma." The small human waved shyly, and Kelly couldn't help but make a gentle chirping sound, one of the few vocalizations her species could produce without hearing. "Kelly," she signed back. "Thank you. How do you know?" A shadow crossed Zachary's face. Quick but unmistakable. "My late wife was deaf. Human deaf. We learned together, then learned GSSL when we started traveling off-world. I wanted Emma to grow up bilingual." Emma tugged on her father's sleeve and signed something with chubby, imprecise fingers. Zachary smiled and translated for Kelly. "She says your scales are pretty. Like a rainbow." Kelly felt warmth spread through her chest, an emotion she'd rarely experienced among the superior hearing species that dominated galactic society. She knelt down carefully, bringing her massive frame closer to Emma's level, and signed slowly so the child could follow. "Thank you, small one. You are very kind," the barista called out, and Zachary retrieved Kelly's hot chocolate, handing it to her with a smile. She noticed he'd paid for it before she could reach for her credit chip. "Please, let me repay you," Kelly signed, but Zachary shook his head. "Consider it a welcome to the neighborhood. Are you new to the station?" Kelly nodded, cradling the warm cup between her claws. "I'm a xenobiologist, just transferred here to study the deep-sea colonies on Europa. I've been struggling to adapt." "It gets easier," Zachary assured her. "Humans can be stubborn and sometimes ignorant, but we learn. Eventually." "Your species is remarkable," Kelly signed, surprising herself with her honesty. "Draconians would never have taken the time. They would have dismissed me as defective." Zachary's expression grew serious. "Then they're fools. Deafness isn't a defect, it's just a different way of experiencing the universe. My wife taught me that. She said deaf people don't need fixing. The world needs fixing." Kelly felt something crack inside her wall she'd built over decades of being treated as lesser, as broken, as worthy of pity at best and contempt at worst. Her eyes, which could see into the infrared spectrum and spot prey from kilometers away, grew damp with tears. "No one has ever said that to me before," she signed, her movements trembling slightly. Emma, with the uncomplicated empathy of childhood, reached out and patted Kelly's scaled forearm. The gesture was small, but it carried the weight of genuine acceptance. Zachary checked his chronometer and grimaced. "I need to get Emma to school, but would you like to join us for lunch later?" There's a restaurant nearby with staff who know GSSL, and Emma would love to hear about Europa. Kelly's tail coiled around her own legs, a draconian gesture of pleased surprise. I would like that very much. They exchanged contact information, and as Zachary and Emma departed, the little girl turned and waved enthusiastically. Kelly waved back, her massive clawed hand moving in a gesture of farewell that transcended species barriers. She sipped her hot chocolate, savoring the sweet warmth, and for the first time since arriving in human space, Kelly smiled, a baring of sharp teeth that her species reserved for moments of genuine joy. Humans, she reflected, were a strange species, short-lived, fragile, and absurdly sentimental. They lacked the draconian scales, the Centaurians' telepathy, the Zectans' hive mind efficiency. By every objective measure, they should have been galactic footnotes, but they had something rarer than any biological advantage. They had the capacity to see past difference, to extend kindness without expectation of return, to build bridges where others saw only chasms. A single father, grieving his wife but teaching his daughter to sign, a species barely 2 centuries into space travel, already learning languages, most ancient civilizations dismissed as irrelevant. Kelly finished her hot chocolate and stepped out into the concourse, scales shimmering under the artificial sun. The galaxy suddenly felt a little less cold, a little more welcoming. And somewhere in the crowd, a human single father and his daughter were making the universe a better place, one small kindness at a time. Humanity, fuck yeah.